LaFaro, and I'm going to be doing a reading tonight from Slattery Falls. This is my debut novella. It came out July 20th through Silver Shamrock Publishing. And before I jump into it, I wanted to say thanks to Brad Proctor for inviting me to come on do a reading tonight. So Slattery Falls follows a group of friends, college-age kids who are kind of amateur ghost hunters. And at the point that we're jumping into, our trio is not yet a trio, it's a duo, two friends named Josh and Travis, and they're investigating their first kind of foray into ghost hunting together. They're investigating the Nathan Hale House, which is an actual museum in Coventry, Connecticut. Supposedly haunted, although I did take some liberties with it. So, let's jump in. I don't want to bore you. I want to tell you about all the cool shit that happened upstairs, but nothing did. Not really. The house was a giant square, so I worried the upstairs might take as long to go through as the downstairs. By the time we explored the second room, we hadn't seen or heard anything of note other than a throw pillow reading, "We'll scare the hell out of you." We were just about finished when I heard a metallic clanking sound below us. A resounding toll like someone had dropped a heavy chain on a hardwood floor, and it reverberated throughout the house. Not that I had much doubt, it was deafening in the silence. But one look at Josh told me he'd heard it, and the gears in his head were already turning. "We make our way downstairs, but we do it slowly," he said. I followed him toward the stairs. Clank. Again, but this one rang further away. Was it leading us somewhere? My ears were at attention, awaiting the next occurrence. My other senses remained on high alert as well. The shadows, which hadn't grabbed my attention before, were creeping across the floor. I attempted to step around them because at that moment, I convinced myself something lived in that darkness. Situational superstition at its finest, but my lizard brain knew no earthly good could come from getting too near. Whatever dwelled there had watched us the minute we first set foot on the property, and now the time for waiting was just about up. Right there, my skepticism died, and what began as something to do on a 3-day weekend became serious business. A substantial part of me wanted to hightail it out of there and not look back, but I shut it down. Something was trying to get our attention, and this might be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Clank. A third time. We heard it as we reached the bottom of the stairs. The sound grew closer. We could pinpoint its location as coming from the basement. I remembered Josh saying something about rattling coming from there. The story contained bits with Hale's brother and a Navy ship. Forgive me if I'm a little fuzzy on the details. The moon's light, which had graced this room only 20 minutes earlier, made a hasty retreat, and the creeping, crawling shadows returned. A portrait of a broad-shouldered man, balding but sporting an enormous bright red beard, shone through the darkness, and I wondered how I could have missed it before. As we crossed the room to the basement door, I could have sworn the man in the portrait's penetrating sea-green eyes followed me. 3 more clanks sounded, one immediately after another, as though a chain were being dragged down a set of steps. Josh reached out to grab me, and I think we both knew something was luring us to the basement. About 15 feet from the basement door, he signaled we should sit. I half expected he might give me the safe word, and I felt a momentary disappointment that surprised the hell out of me. Instead, he spoke just above a whisper and said, "This is why we planned. We don't lose our heads just because there's activity. We're going to take on the basement like all the other rooms, but slower. More cautiously. We're going to sit here for another minute, collect ourselves, then make our way to the basement door, and you'll follow my lead." Josh delivered the speech in a way that left me wondering whether he was talking to me or just himself. I didn't pick up on it, but later I would think about him not giving me an out. I've thought a lot about the motives, or maybe lack of motives, he had. Even 10 years later, I still can't come to a solid conclusion. The guy's a mystery. We stood and crossed the last 15 feet to the basement door. As we closed the gap, the moon reappeared and the outstretched arms of the shadows rescinded. I barely picked up on this, though. My eyes were locked on the door. It was a dull blue or gray, paint peeling, and the colors indistinguishable in limited light. This struck me as strange in a museum regularly open to the public. like a single small corner of the house fallen into disrepair. Josh tapped the knob 3 times with the flat of his hand, as you might do when looking for a safe exit during a fire. Satisfied, he looked in my direction, took a deep breath, and opened the door. Whatever I expected, some grisly decaying nightmare creature, or maybe the ghost of Nathan Hale with an elongated neck on the other side of the door, didn't come to fruition. The door swung open toward us, and the narrow staircase descended into a murky darkness. Even straining my eyes, I couldn't see the bottom. "After you," I said. Josh eased down the creaking set of stairs, shining the flashlight toward the basement, but also side to side, never keeping it in one area for more than a couple seconds. Given the shabby condition of the door, we weren't confident about the upkeep of what lay behind it, and took each step with care. "Do you smell that?" he said. I inhaled deeply and caught a faint scent of cold, salt air. I'm not sure I'd ever thought of a smell as cold before, but there was no other way to describe it. Going down the stairs, the scent became stronger and stronger, and I had to remind myself that we were not actually descending into the hold of a ship. When we reached the bottom, we paused and got an idea of the layout. No windows of any kind appeared to be letting outside light in, and the open door at the top of the stairs wasn't as generous with its luminescence as one might expect. Josh held up a hand to signal I should stay where I was, then maneuvered around me so that we were standing back to back. We were in a position of defense. "If there are any spirits here, please make your presence known," Josh called out. No response. "Don't all speak up at once," I said. "Shut up." As soon as I said it, the room grew darker. Sorry about that. I could concede the movement in the upstairs shadows could be attributed to adrenaline and an overactive imagination. I doubt I'll be able to convince anyone that imagination wasn't a factor in the basement. The darkness became absolute. Even our flashlights no longer cast light. They simply became pinpricks in the Stygian black. "No husky yet," he murmured, as if reading my thoughts. Josh reached out with his free hand, grabbed the sleeve of my sweatshirt, and started inching away from the stairs. Despite their ineffectiveness, we kept the flashlights on. A thunderous clank came from the base of the stairs, where we had stood only a moment ago. It had the clear timbre of metal crashing down on wood despite the basement's concrete foundation. When the reverberation settled, a sound like a foot dragging across the floor emanated from the same location. A step, a shuffle. A step, a shuffle. Coming closer now. A step and a shuffle. "I'm calling it," I whispered. "We've got to go. There's fucking somebody down here." The door at the top of the stairs slammed shut. Our flashlights returned from the dead, revealing a figure hunched over, facing the corner of the room. The burst of light lasted for less than a second, but that image etched itself into my mind, perfectly detailed. Something about its stance struck me as inherently male, though I couldn't see the face. Long, dark, dirty hair would have obscured the features, even if it had been looking toward us. It wore a trench coat, tattered along the bottom, which hardly concealed a pair of bare, filthy feet. We continued moving to the stairs, eyes locked on the pitch-black spot we'd seen the specter in. The flashlights lit up again for a split second, just long enough to divulge that the previously inhabited corner stood empty now. It's funny. I recall every second in the basement of the Hale house so clearly, but the exodus is a blur. I remember getting to the stairs, scrambling up on hands and knees. I don't know who got to the top first, but the door didn't open right away. Maybe whatever was in the house was keeping us in. Maybe the door just didn't fit correctly in the frame. Hell, maybe we even momentarily lacked the capacity to push in the right direction. After what felt like forever, it opened and we sprinted through the entrance room and outside, putting some distance between ourselves and the house. One last thing I remember about getting out of there. I felt watched. Even after we got outside, a chill like icy fingers running up my spine kept me from looking back and made me move like the devil was chasing me until I hit the woods. Thank you again for sitting in with me. Slattery Falls is out now. Check it out if you like what you heard, and thanks again to Brad Proctor. I've got to go check out some of those strange sounds that I was hearing while I was trying to read.